May these words I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. Given how we have been traditionally taught about Jesus, I find myself wondering, why did he need to be baptized? Given how we have been traditionally taught about Jesus, I find myself wondering, why did he need to change anything? For me personally, many of our traditional teachings have within them a fundamental misunderstanding of the point of the Scriptures and the nature of Jesus. And that has created, over the centuries, unresolvable paradox. Christianity's movement from metaphor to literalism, and it has been a movement. These stories didn't begin literally, they were turned into literal understandings. And that movement from metaphor to literalism over the centuries has neutered the beauty and the mystery of the stories and has stripped Jesus of his humanness. This I grieve deeply, because without a willingness to open to the wonder and the mystery, we can only cling to a shallow and childish kind of belief, one that creates paradox and contradiction that can only be managed within ourselves by not thinking about it too much. And so we have designed theologies, and we have established denominations, now numbering around the world almost 40,000 Christian denominations. And we have done this to try to understand. And all it does, it seems to me, is drive us further and further and further from real truth, from deep truth, and from deep wisdom. Which, simply put, is that love, and only love, brings life and brings God to light. Jesus got this. He got it. But the church didn't, and still hasn't. And so we turn Jesus into something to believe in rather than to follow, something to worship rather than imitate. Jesus, I fear, would not be amused. Jesus chose to be baptized. He chose to be baptized. Why? For me personally, it is clear and obvious when I look at the core of the gospel message, the heart of the story about how to bring the God presence to light in the world. It is about a commitment to love. Sally McFaig writes, "We were made by God to become like God, loving all others, loving universally." I very much doubt that Jesus just showed up at the Jordan River one day, said, "Hi, my name's Jesus. I understand you're John," and shook his hand and said, "Can you baptize me?" I don't think it happened that way. Rather, Jesus, throughout his life, had witnessed and experienced the poverty and oppression in his world, made even more difficult by Roman occupation. He didn't like what he saw, what he was experiencing, like most of his community. And he came to not like what he was being taught, unlike most of his community. He yearned for his life and his world to be different, and he began searching for a way to do that. It was at the Jordan River with John, that Jesus would experience an epiphany of his own, that love, open and unconditional, was, is, and will always be the way of God. That love grounds us and grows our spirit. That love is the only way to bring the God presence to life in the world. But Jesus was different than most. He was different because he didn't just acknowledge this fundamental truth. That's the easy part. He committed to living this truth in his life to the best of his ability. He committed to it. And baptism became Jesus' public declaration of his change of consciousness, his metanoia, and his commitment to live that profound change in understanding. He would no longer accept the status quo where injustice, oppression, and marginalization reigned, but would instead commit fully to love, to become like God, loving all others, loving universally. And as he was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens torn apart. They didn't just open kind of beautifully like a curtain at a big theater. They were torn apart. Things were changing. Life was going to be different. They were torn apart, and he felt this Spirit descend like a dove, and he heard this voice, "You are my Son, with you I am well pleased." Jesus would dedicate the rest of his life to being love, to teaching love, to demanding love and commanding love, even to death. Jesus wasn't born to do this for us. Jesus was born and lived to show us it could be done by all of us. Richard Rohr writes, "Your life is not about you. You are about life. You are the instance of a universal, eternal pattern. The one life that many call God is living itself in you and through you and as you. You have never been separate from God except in your own mind." Jesus, I believe, was way, way ahead of his time. 2,000 years ago, he was saying, the time for right beliefs is done, the time for love is come. And the world wasn't ready for it. But I think we're a little bit closer to embracing his way now. I return to Rohr, and he says, practical, practice-based, love-based Christianity has been avoided, denied, minimized, ignored, delayed, and sidelined for too many centuries by too many Christians who were never told Christianity was anything more than a belonging or belief system. He continues, there is no Methodist or Catholic or Orthodox or Presbyterian or Baptist or Anglican or Lutheran or Evangelical or United. I added that one. There is no one individual way of loving, of living a nonviolent life, of showing compassion, of welcoming the stranger. We have made this mistake for too long. We cannot keep avoiding, he says, what Jesus actually emphasized and mandated. In this most urgent time, our time, it is love that urges us forward. This poem by James Broughton is for me a near perfect expression of this way of being in the world, this way of committing to the world, this way of baptizing ourselves in a new way, urging us forward in love. And he says, shake out your qualms, shake up your dreams, Deepen your roots. Extend your branches. Trust deep water and head for the open, even if your vision shipwrecks you. Quit your addiction to sneer and complain. Open a lookout. Dance on a brink. Run with your wildfire. You are closer to glory, leaping an abyss, than upholstering a rut. Not dawdling, not doubting, intrepid all the way, walk toward clarity. At every crossroad, be prepared to bump into wonder. Only love prevails. En route to disaster, insist on canticles. Lift your ineffable out of the mundane. Nothing perishes, nothing survives, everything transforms. Honeymoon with big joy. Just like Jesus, the one life that many call God is living itself in you and through you as you. Sally McFaig says of this realization that God is living as you in you is an earthquake in the being, a hurricane in the heart, a Copernican revolution in the mind, and a monumental shift in consciousness. Yet most of us do not seem to be interested in it. But it seems to me that just like Jesus, we are being challenged in whatever time we have left in our lives to commit to love fully and completely. Jesus embraced a change in consciousness, a change of mind and heart, and chose to be baptized to proclaim this change. And just like Jesus, we too need to change, to courageously proclaim that change in a world that isn't really very excited about it. To honeymoon with big joy and commit to love. Amen.